we have an opportunity to look at the fourth effort. The fourth effort, previously known as the fourth step, currently known as the fourth step effort, or the fourth effort step. So we're going to talk about the efforts and the steps tonight, because I think there's been some confusion in our community and we want to make sure to clear that up. So before we begin, let's stop as we do. Please bring your palms face up with the thumb and forefinger together. Bring it down onto the knees so that you're just relaxed in a meditative posture. Please give yourself this moment, this opportunity to become fully present in this space. Allow the eyes to close, and through the nose, take a deep inhale. And through the nose, exhale. Draw the eyes upward slightly. Deep inhale. And a full exhale. Squeeze the belly in to get rid of the exhale. Inhale deeply. And exhale fully. A deep inhale. And a full exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Your deepest inhale. And your fullest exhale. Please come with your eyes open. I'm feeling just so grateful. I'm grateful because of the purpose and the presence, the health, and the love that I get to feel in this five-sensory nervous system. Life has presented its challenges lately. Yes? Have you noticed? Anybody out there feeling that? We are being asked to navigate tremendous challenge in our lives. There's no denying that. We are being asked to navigate tremendous challenges in our lives. I have personally felt some fear, some stress, occasional anxiety. I've been involved in a deep contemplation each day. Honestly, a deep contemplation through the whole day. How shall I expend my energy? What is meaningful? What feels in alignment? What feels good? What feels not good? And I tell you that I've been experiencing these emotions because despite that, I feel so grateful. I feel so blessed. I feel so hopeful. And I ask myself, why? It's so easy not to feel grateful. It's so easy not to feel blessed. It's so easy to be in negativity. It's so easy to be caught. And it's so easy to be in the addictive tendencies of the mind. And right now, I'm not. I'm not caught there. Sure, there are things in my life that I'm working on. There are externalities that I'd like to see shift. There's a to-do list, like any of us have a to-do list. There's the to-do list that will never ever end in this life. We all understand that, hopefully, by now. But the underlying feeling is one of gratitude. It's important to ask oneself, why? And there are answers to that question. Definitely. One reason I feel grateful is because I'm no longer put upon by my past. The weight of the world, the weight of my past has been released to a great enough extent. I've been able to transcend the trauma, the difficulty, the stories, and the painful, challenging experiences of the past. And because of releasing the past, it has created the possibility for me to become present. And the present that I feel is one of joy. I'm simply glad to be here. I hope you are too. And so I think as I reflect back on my years of addiction and many, many years in recovery, this was not the case. I was not able to become present because my past had a grip on me and I had a grip on it. Everyone here has a story of something that happened. The story of something that happened. And for me, the resulting experience in life, because of what happened, the general experience was frustration and anger. For me, that's what I was feeling. So much anger that it hurt. It hurt me physically. And the place that I was, the way that I thought, my relationship with others toward whom I had anger was one of complete disempowerment on my part. I'm so angry with you that I've decided I won't forgive you. I won't let go of this anger unless you apologize to me. And your apology needs to be just so. I need your apology to match my level of anger. And if it doesn't count. Walking through life angry and having decided that I won't let go of that anger unless X, Y, and Z people perform X, Y, and Z apologies is called disempowerment. You have placed your power into someone else's hands. The only way I can let go of my anger, the only way I can relieve myself of this pain depends upon your apology. I have no control over you. Therefore, your apology may or may not ever be coming to me. And when it comes, it may or may not be the apology that I need, that I demand, so that I can let go of my anger. The fate of my day, and therefore the fate of my life, I have disempowered myself. It is in somebody else's hands. And I had enough awareness toward the end of my addiction and in the first couple years of my recovery to realize this was not going to work. But I had no idea how to release this anger. I wasn't getting the apologies I was hoping for. It just wasn't working out. Still angry, angry, angry. And in come the 12 steps. They must have known that people who struggle with addiction struggle in their relationships. They must have known that people who struggle with addiction struggle with resentment. And they realized that you couldn't live successfully and carry that kind of weight. Somehow, we were going to have to work out our resentments. So in the first step, we admitted we were powerless over addiction, that our lives had become unmanageable. We make that admittance. We see what has been happening. We see we don't have any power when it comes to that substance or that behavior. In the second step came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. We recognize that we've been insane and that we're seeking a power, connection to a power greater than ourselves. We need to plug into the motherboard somehow. And if we do so, we could be returned to this state of sanity. In the third step, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. We basically came to the realization, since what we're looking for is to connect with a power greater than ourselves, and we're being given an opportunity to decide what that power is. We're building a relationship with a higher power, a spiritual power, a godlike power, that we're going to make a decision that this is what our deal is going to be now. Is that we're going to make our effort, the sum total of our effort about that connection. We're entering into the alignment with spirit. And having done those first 3 steps, isn't it interesting to recognize that almost everybody stops right there? 1, 2, 3, out. 1, 2, 3, out. Okay. Why? Having made that decision that we're now going to align ourselves, it's pointed out to us that we couldn't possibly do that alignment. We couldn't be successful in that alignment without some pretty specific work called a personal inventory. Step 4, made a fearless and thorough personal inventory of ourselves. Now those are the steps. We'll come to the efforts in a minute. The personal inventory is simply looking at your life through the lens of your resentments. And there's a genius here. There's a real genius. They're not asking you to detail the plot points of your life. They're asking you to look at where you're holding on to anything negative. Where have you been holding on to the past? And there's a real genius here, because what's recognized is you can't be present and live in this alignment with God, with spirit, with higher power. You can't do it if you're bound to the past, caught in negativity, caught in resentment. And so the 4th step asks, where are you holding on to negativity? Where are your resentments? Let's look. Primarily, that's the initial part of the step. Okay. The efforts, the 12 efforts, are nothing more than an adjustment in language from the 12 steps. I've said this before, and I'm going to continue to say this. I don't want there to be any confusion. The process, if someone came to you and said, could you help me go through the 12 efforts? And you've been through the 12 steps already. And all that person is saying is, can you help me go through the 12 steps, adopting the language of the efforts? You still got to go through the work. Still going to have to do the personal inventory. There's prayer involved. There's writing involved. You'll still have to do all that. That person is just saying, I'm more comfortable with the language of the 12 efforts. And that's wonderful. That's why I wrote them. Just to create some language that for certain people could be more welcoming, less off-putting for certain people. But nowhere in the effort of writing the efforts is there the idea that the 12 steps don't work. There's magic in the 12 steps. I've experienced it in my life. I've watched many people get turned off to the 12 steps because of language. And so I just simply adapted and made some new language, just so hopefully those people wouldn't leave the room. But the work is the same. So if anybody ever comes up to you in a Recovery 2.0 meeting or context and says, could you help walk me through the efforts? If you've been through the 12 steps, you would say, sure. Let's go through the 12-step work, and we'll work with language as we go. And everyone will have a different approach to that. And there's no specific. There's just the 12 efforts as they're written in each effort. And that language, the languaging of consciousness, the languaging of universe instead of God, the language of connecting with consciousness, pursuing consciousness, getting unstuck, is language that some people appreciate. That's all. Here, the fourth step, or the fourth effort, the language was really not changed. The only word I changed from the fourth step to the fourth effort was the word fearless. Instead of fearless, I put honest. We made an honest and thorough personal inventory of ourselves. The only reason I changed fearless to honest is because I've never known anybody to go through the fourth step without fear. That it just didn't seem accurate to me. So I just took that word out and I changed it for honest. 1, 2, 3, out. 1, 2, 3, out. Why? Because it's frightening to look at the shadow. It's frightening to look at the negativity. It's frightening to look at the resentment. And it's incredibly frightening to recognize how you have been a part of all of that. So a lot of people are daunted by the fourth step. And they decide, thanks, but no thanks. If they relapse, if they go out, they find out how painful that is. And hopefully, usually, they come back and they try again. And hopefully they have a sponsor, or someone who can guide them, that really puts them into the fourth step, shows them how it's done, and in a very timely fashion gets them to move through it in an appropriate way. Everybody will be different, of course. But I've spoken to people who have been on the fourth step for like a year. And I say to them, if they're asking for my advice, I say, please get through the fourth step as quickly as you possibly can. You don't want to stay in that energy. The fourth step is something to be done thoroughly, honestly, and relatively seamlessly. In other words, don't stop in the middle of that process, because a person can really become morbid. They can become stuck in it, and it can really be a problem. So one of the things I like to tell people about the fourth step, the fourth effort, is this is a process of introspection that is asking you to look at some of the darker, more painful aspects of your life and your character. The point of it is for you to be able to let go of those things and to be free of the past, to be unfettered, unhindered, and to be set free, so that you can become fully present and continue your life, so that regardless of external circumstances, you can have a sense of gratitude every day, so that every day, even with challenge, becomes a day of gratitude. That you're grateful to be alive, grateful for the blessings and the challenges of your life. And it really does have to begin with this work. This alignment happens because we start to look at what has not been working. We start to look at our negativity and our resentments. The fourth step process is a process that should be done by everyone. I don't mean just people who struggle with addiction. It should be done by everyone. Everyone, before they go out into the world, should go through this process. I stand by that. I will always stand by that. It's such a valuable introspection. Who gets to do this? For me, it was 22 years old. 22 years old. At 22, I went to treatment and I got to do my first fourth step. And I remember thinking even then, wow, this is a very difficult but very important process. Unbelievably important process. And when I got to my fifth step, I recognized that I was okay. I didn't know that I was okay. And a lot of the shame and the guilt that I carried dissipated through that process. I had such misunderstandings about myself and the world. And those misunderstandings started to become understandings. They transformed, they transmuted. There was forgiveness There was a humility, a deep humility, and a willingness to do this work and to see what was there, come what may. I took it very seriously. The people around me took it very seriously. The fourth step was not a laughing matter. And there was a palpable sense of purpose. Like when I was doing my fourth step, that sort of became the purpose. So the process of it I can describe a little bit for those who are not aware of it, and for those who are. I just simply say this. It's very regimented, the way the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and many other 12-step programs suggest that you do it. You make columns, 4 columns total. In the first column, you write, who am I resentful at? So I might put, mom, dad, brother, sister, friend, school teacher, uncle, aunt, cousin, whatever it was. The cause. What is the cause? That's the second column. Who am I resentful at? What's the cause? Yeah. My mom. Angry at my mom. Why? Resentful at my mom. Why? Because she could never cheer up. Because she was so bitter. And her mood just brought us down on many occasions. She had a tremendous brightness inside, but she was so bitter and so sad. And it was difficult for me. I had resentment about it. What did it affect? The third column. Did it affect my self-esteem? Sense of security? Did it affect my financial security? Did it affect other relationships of mine? What's underneath it? Self-esteem is part of it. No question. Was there fear there? Yes. So those are the 3 columns. Who it was, what the cause was, and what did it affect in me? But then you have the all-important, most important 4th column. And the 4th column is, how did I play a part in this resentment? I have the resentment at someone else for their behavior. How did I play a part in it? Was I selfish? Self-centered, self-seeking, dishonest? Where did fear have a role to play? Resentful at my mom because she's always bitter and sad. Affects my self-esteem, affects my sense of security. What's my side of the street? Selfishness, self-centeredness, fear. Why? I couldn't help my mom. And every time I got around her, it hurt. And I couldn't deal with the feeling of powerlessness. And rather than be in the hurt of it, I decided to grip onto a resentment. And really to build it. The truth was, my mother was sad. She had been hurt. She was traumatized. But going through the 4th step, I recognized my part. I recognized my psychology, my way of thinking. I recognized my orientation of my own needs up against somebody else's pain. And what I was able to do was to see, oh, I've been selfish. Now, it isn't like I'm beating myself up, oh, what a terribly selfish person. But this is why we say to people, get through the fourth step quickly. Because we need to tell another human being about this stuff. Our sponsor, usually. That happens in the fifth step. But can you imagine? I mean, I had 200, 300 resentments on my fourth step. I mean, when I gave my fifth step to my sponsor, that was a 7-hour process. That guy sat there and listened to me and reflected with me and helped me unravel a lifetime of negativity and resentment that had built up. And I was loving, caring, sweet-hearted. I am a sweet-hearted person, but not underneath all of that resentment. Do you understand? The reason why selfishness is important here, and someone's saying, why is that selfish? It's an orientation to someone else's pain that I'm angry about your pain. That's not considering the other person's pain. That one doesn't have the perspective. Remember, I was a teenager at this point, or later on, I was in my 20s, still carrying these negative emotions. At some point, we have to wake up and we have to say, wow, that person that hurt me, did that thing to me, that person who I resent so terribly, they got hurt. They're traumatized too. They have a whole life and a whole way of being. And don't get me wrong, there are people in the world that behave amazingly poorly, so destructively, so violent. I get that. But that's not the point of the fourth step or the fourth effort. The point is, how can I be free? How can I be free? I have to look. I have to look. It's not about me saying to myself, I'm a terrible person because I've been selfish at times. That's not the point of this. This is not about bringing more shame upon ourselves. The point is to bring the dark to light. And in bringing the dark to light, beyond the selfishness or my anger towards my mom because of her bitterness and her sadness, what I discovered was, or rediscovered was, my heart, my sweetness. I really just wish I could have helped her, but I didn't have the wherewithal to do it. It wasn't my place, and I wasn't able. I was just a child. I have to forgive myself. I have to forgive her. Otherwise, I'll just stay in anger, waiting for an apology, over which I'm not even sure that may or may not ever come. So all we're trying to do is shine the light on our patterns of behavior with other people. If you don't think that relationship, by the way, with my mom, played out in some of my romantic relationships with women, think again. And with each opportunity, there's an opportunity to become more aware. The movement from darkness to light is called yoga. Yoga. And that's why I say the 12-step or 12-effort process is a yogic process from my perspective. This is yoga. So we go through this process of looking at our resentments. We look at the fourth column, the column where we see our responsibility, our role that we played. And normally, like what I found out through most of my resentments was there was a lot of fear in me. And actually fear dominated me. Fear dominated my life, even though I didn't recognize that. I didn't see that. Now, it's one thing for me to tell you this. I guess I should ask you this. Who in the room has never done a fourth step or worked the fourth step or effort? Who has never done that yet? Don't be shy. Okay, some are doing it right now. Okay, a whole bunch of people haven't ever done it. Okay. Thank you for that. My greatest prayer and hope for you is to do this, is to work through the steps. If you like the language of the efforts, work through the steps with the language of the efforts. But when you come to this process, it's so sacred. It's so powerful. It's so profound. You will learn so much about yourself. And you'll be setting yourself free of fear. You'll set yourself free of the weight. And it's just, I can't say enough about it. The people who have been through the 12 steps, who have really worked them with an open mind, open heart, and as earnestly as they can, my experience of those people, they've really worked through it honestly. They've had a profound shift in their life. They're set apart. They're a breed apart, those folks. They have developed things like trustworthiness. They have character. They have dignity. And they have, the ability to show up. So it's just such an incredibly powerful thing. Kathleen is asking, why do the steps or the efforts work? It turns out, I'm just going to try to be practical. I'll be practical, and then I can bring in the spiritual piece of this. The steps work because of a combination of elements. One is earnestness, seeking. Like, seeking is really powerful. That's basically saying to the universe, I'm interested in learning. I'm interested in the truth. I'm interested in living in a more truthful, whole, and authentic way. So that earnestness and that seeking is an element of why this works. If you're willing to do this work and you're guided, you're going to be writing, you're going to be reading, and you're going to be at meetings, and you're going to be connecting with other people in recovery. It's just simply a very powerful process. To look within, as we're doing in the fourth effort or the fourth step, to look within this introspection, self-inquiry, is a critical piece of learning. Of course, you have to look at your life to understand the lessons that your life can give you. Of course, it makes all the sense in the world. So, I want to read you something quickly about the fourth step. Okay? This is in the book Recovery 2.0. And if any of you, I'm going to definitely get you to read this book if you haven't read it, especially section 2, which is all about the 12 steps. And this is where the efforts really began, was in looking at the 12 steps through what I would consider to be just a different lens. That's all. Not better, not worse, just different. So here we are in chapter 8, Unlocking the 12 Steps. For each of the steps, I wrote a little section, the key to step so-and-so. So this is the key to step 4. We must turn our gaze inward, and with humility, honesty, and thoroughness, look at what lies within us. We will clearly see that resentment has fueled the disturbances of our mind and has kept us stuck in the past. Here in step 4, we learn to stop up the massive energy leaks that it causes. The mind cannot fully calm itself or become present until this work is done. I cannot put it any more plainly than that. I cannot put it any more plainly than that. Okay? The fourth step is where we learn the practice of claiming our history as our own, rather than blaming someone else for it. The power we seek will come from owning our entire history. A wise man once told me, "Tommy, your life is 100% yours. You are responsible for everything in it." Sometimes it's incredibly difficult to see and claim your part in something that has been painful for you to experience. Write it down, write it down, write it down. You are moving toward freedom. This works because the introspection combined with earnestness, combined with reflection based on another person's input and guidance. Later on, the reconciliation that takes place because of the 9th step amends, the amends process of cleaning up the wreckage, building bridges towards people whom we have hurt. And then ultimately later on, connecting more deeply with our sense of spirit, with our soul and our heart, or God, whatever your word is for that. And then finally, we realize in the end of all of it, the whole purpose all the time was just to be of service. That the 12th step was really the point the whole time. And that the first 11 steps were simply there to make us into effective, helpful, present beings that could be helpful to other people. That was where the juice was at. That was the action. The action, the thing that we wanted, the fulfillment, the joy, the love, the connection, that was going to come through service to others. And that has been true in my life. And that has been absolutely true in countless other people with whom I hang out quite a bit. So this 4th step is where a lot of people leave. And what I tell you is, please, if you're in early recovery, if you're struggling in your life in any way, if you're in advanced recovery and you're looking for that next step and you've never done these steps, please, it's the most liberating, incredible, empowering process that I've ever been through in my life. It's right up there, even neck and neck, with the work that I've done in yoga and meditation. So these efforts are only a little tweak in language, just to invite more people in to be able to access the magic and the great, great sacred learning that exists in the 12 steps. The process of inventory, of this inventory, it will take us through all the resentments, and then we will have an opportunity to look at our sexual history. Each one of us having an opportunity to review that aspect of our life. This is a place where human beings generally, unfortunately, struggle. How to be, what to be, who to be. And the book is very specific about this. Where had we been selfish? Where had we been self-seeking? Where have we been dishonest? How have we hurt? Did we incite jealousy through our actions? We look at it all, and God knows I had plenty to look at there. And what it allows you to do is to have the beginnings of a template template, a way of relating to a romantic partner, or coming from the heterosexual perspective, the opposite sex, whatever your gender or your sexual orientation, a way of relating to whomever you would be sexually attracted. You get to choose what makes sense for you based upon what you're learning in your sexual inventory. I learned there was a great deal of selfishness in me. I was often unkind or dishonest in my relationships. And I decided that in looking at that, it was not working for me as a strategy to go through life. That meant that in my ideal, I could begin to sculpt a way forward that included things like honesty and kindness and a more present approach. And that way, I could begin to grow in my maturity. So there's the spiritual side of it. So I could grow, I could wake up, but then there's maturity. I could grow up. And I had to do both of those things, both wake up and grow up. Most of us do. After the sexual inventory part of this step, you finally come to your list of fears, your fear list, and you pull it out and you look, what have I been fearful of? Things like fear of economic insecurity, fear of not being enough, fear of not being seen, fear of being alone. All the many myriad fears that human beings carry, boom, they show up. They show up. Amazing. And it's there in front of you for you to look at. And here's the thing. So this is the fourth step. This is the fourth effort. We made the inventory. We complete all that. And in our fifth step and fifth effort, we share that with another human being. We share it with the universe. We openly and honestly share the tale. We tell what we've learned about ourselves. And we set ourselves free. And it's absolutely the most amazing thing. When I did my first fourth step and then did my fifth step, I was in treatment. And it wasn't like a white light experience. All it was for me was I felt like I had done something important. And that was enough. That was enough. I felt like I had done something important. And I want to tell you that I hadn't felt that way for a long time. And so that feeling of having done something important boosted my self-esteem. And it made me feel like, oh, I'm okay. I'm going to be okay. I have to keep going, though. I have to keep going, but I'm going to be okay. And I didn't know that before. And so, later on, I would do many more fourth steps in my life. I would work the steps. I would rework the steps. I would sometimes get with a sponsor who said, tell me where you're at. And I'd say, well, I'm 7 years sober, and a lot of resentment's coming up. And we would quickly run through steps 1, 2, and 3, make sure that I, was there. And then we jump right into the fourth step. We could really look at these resentments. What's going on? What's underneath all this? And so it wasn't like, oh, you did the fourth step or the fourth effort and then you were done. No. it was just the next step forward. The next step forward. And then when I brought the yoga and meditation into this, I started to make quantum leaps forward, where my consciousness, my thinking, my thought process, the detoxification of energy, the very deep and very subtle detoxification of deeper subconscious stuff was taking place through the yoga and the meditation. I was becoming more and more and more free. I was becoming lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. And I recognize now that because of that, because of the steps, because of these efforts, and because of therapy, and because of yoga, meditation, and especially the way I nourish myself with food, water, and breath, because of those things, that I can sit here in front of you and say, I've experienced some challenging emotions this week, and I'm so grateful. I'm so, so grateful. And I've experienced incredible blessings this week also. And I'm so, so grateful. And if you are hearing this and you think to yourself, oh, I wish I could be grateful too. I feel so weighted down. I feel so overwhelmed. I feel so stressed. I feel so anxious. I feel so fearful. If you're feeling that, I'm here to tell you there's a way through. There's a way to your own enlightenment. And enlightenment just means you become a little lighter, and a little lighter, and a little lighter, and a little lighter. And I strongly suggest the steps, efforts. But make no mistake about it. If somebody comes to you and you're a member of Recovery 2.0 and you have worked through the 12 steps, and somebody comes to you and says, would you take me through the 12 efforts? To me, the response is, if you're able, if you have the time. Let's assume you have the time and you want to do that, and this person seems earnest. For me, the response is, absolutely. I want you to understand that the efforts and the steps are pretty much the same thing, except there's some interesting new language that we're working with. And we can work through the steps in light of this new language. And if you're interested in yoga and meditation, we can bring that in at the right moment. And what we're going to do is we're going to have an experience together of awakening. This incredible community, this Recovery 2.0 membership, we are a community of freedom, and we're a community of service. That's what we are. And so we live those things every day. And we recognize that we can go and we have the power of choice restored to us in life because of the fact that we've done step work. And by the way, if the 12 steps are simply unacceptable to you, you will not do them. That's okay. You are still welcome here. Only I would encourage you to find another path of recovery or spirituality to help you achieve the same thing that the 12 steps will help you achieve, which ultimately is a connection to a greater source of power that you can always draw from, so that you can work out the negativity, resentments, anxieties, and fears of your past to become fully present. And then you can work the body through yoga, the mind through meditation. And you can fuel your efforts with the most incredible nourishment and food. And you can, on a one day at a time basis, find yourself in the force field of gratitude. Thank you very much. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to take a look at the Q&A here, the Q&A feature, and I'd like to answer a few questions. I'd like to ask that all of you stay, if you wouldn't mind, in the room. Stay here for another 5 to 7 minutes. If you want to find one of our meetings, which is a good place to find a sponsor, go to r20.com/meetings. Stacy from our team has put the link into the chat bar here. And I hope that each of you feels inspired. And I hope mostly that you feel hopeful, that you understand what's waiting for you if you feel yourself struggling. And that for those who have already done this work and feel free, you're blessed. Let's keep doing the work together one day at a time. And let's just take this thing as far as it will take us and see where we can get to in this life. So just to answer a couple quick questions here. I feel like I know the source of my resentments and anger and feel like I've circled around them for decades without being able to let go. How does the fourth step transmute the disappointment and shame about holding on to these unfulfilled needs or expectations by identifying them? So it's not just the fourth step, but it's everything that follows and it's everything that preceded. It's the fourth step in uncovering these things, and then it's all the rest of the steps in what you do with what you've uncovered. That's the thing. It's not just about an identification of resentment, but it's a whole process of releasing and surrendering the resentments into God's hands, into your higher power's hands, into Spirit's hands, into prayer's hands, into the quantum field. It's about recapitulation. It's about a renewal. It's about a full recovery of presence. And so it's not just about the fourth step. It's about the whole process. Thank you so much for that question. Hello, Tommy. Ever since reading about step 4 a week ago, I've had resistance come up. But since the chapter was opened, the process of acknowledging the resentments has entered unbeknown to my conscious mind, and it has been consuming. I'm really struggling. I feel a full body reaction of fear and I dissociate. My question is, how do I stand in the whirlwind itself and not be swayed? I feel like when I write, it's as if I'm no longer present in my body. I also find the fear of becoming dependent on whomever I'll be working with. I see my resistance there to fully opening up to inviting help. What am I not acknowledging or seeing here? Well, I think you're acknowledging and seeing so much, and I think that's wonderful. You obviously have a very heightened awareness, and that's going to serve you really well moving forward. This is Karina. I would simply say this. Every single day, 30 minutes. No more. No more. 30 minutes. Set a timer. Write 30 minutes. Whatever comes, comes. After 30 minutes, close the book, move on. And before you know it, you're going to be done with your fourth step. Just do your 30 minutes. And this is what I tell people when they're in the fourth step. I cannot stress to you how important I feel cardiovascular exercise is when you're doing the fourth step. Go out and take a hike. Go out and bike ride. Go out and run. Or go to a beautiful, strenuous yoga class. Release the energy as much as you can with each day. And you'll find yourself much more in your body than you're used to. I'm almost there, you guys, so just hang out. We're going to pray in just a moment before we go. Just finished the fifth step, working on 6 and 7. My sponsor is inviting me to become myself a sponsor. I am scared I will fail at it. When does one know he, she, they are ready for being a sponsor? Everybody has different feelings about this. For me, I would wait at least till you go through some of your 9th step amends, at least, before becoming a sponsor or putting your hand up to sponsor someone else. However, listen, there are people who are not on their first step, who are on day 1 of recovery, and you probably can help them a lot. So it's not a rule. But keep going through your steps, keep moving down the line, and if somebody asks you to sponsor them, assume that God knows what's going on, say yes. And then do it and keep working your steps and stay ahead of that person. And also stay sober no matter what, and get your sponsor's help. Okay? Next, if step 9 is about asking for forgiveness, Why do we not expect those who hurt us to apologize, ask for forgiveness? Is that because of where they are in their story and awareness? Is it that they are not presently capable of that, or that they may not have been able to give us what we needed in childhood? So all of that is yes, yes, and yes. We do not expect those who hurt us to apologize, because if we do, we're placing ourselves in a position of disempowerment. Our happiness, our presence, our state of health and wellness cannot be related to another person's apology coming or not. We don't expect those who hurt us to apologize because, in point of fact, we don't actually need it. It's lovely when it comes. And boy, oh boy, when apologies come, they can be so healing, and it's a wonderful thing. But if we're in a position to expect it, we're putting ourselves in a position where we could be remaining in resentment for an indefinite amount of time. How do I approach someone to sponsor me? You ask if they've worked through the steps, and then if they say yes, then you say, would you be willing to take me through the steps? I'm looking for a sponsor. If they're able to, in terms of time, they'll probably meet you, or they'll want to meet you for coffee, or if you're not getting together in this weird time, you'll meet online on Zoom, and then you can connect with them. It's very simple. Just ask somebody who has what you desire. So if they have a certain vibration or a certain feeling, or they feel really positive, they got their game together, you can go and ask that person. Okay? We'll try to be helpful in Recovery 2.0 in locating people who have worked through the steps that are willing to sponsor somebody else, so that we can bring some folks into this. Someone's asking, is there a step-by-step guide to doing the 12 efforts? There is not. There is not. I want to be very clear about this. So far, there is not. And you don't want to wait for that to come out. You want to get right into the steps. You can work with the language of the 12 efforts as they're written, but there's no step-by-step guide, because, again, the process is very similar to the 12 steps. I am working with the Recovery 2.0 coaches to look at different approaches and ways we could make this work available to others, but for right now, there's no guide. Okay. Final question of the night. If you were victimized by family and bringing that energy into a marriage, the anger of being used is hurtful and hard to let go of. Well, that is absolutely true. That is absolutely true. And no one is saying that this is easy. We're only saying that as adults, we have to do the work necessary to move beyond resentment. Otherwise, it will consume us. We have to find a way to move forward out of resentment and out of negativity and out of blame. It is the hardest thing to do, especially for people who very legitimately have been hurt, traumatized, violated, etc. We're not denying that those things take place. And we're not being insensitive to the unbelievable pain. On the contrary, we're saying we understand the unbelievable pain of this, and it would be our choice that you don't live in it any longer. This is the way that we have found to get through that. It's difficult, but it works. So let's go through it. Let's bring the palms together at the heart center. We'll close with the Recovery 2.0 prayer. Inhale to begin. Universe, put me in the places you want me to be, with the people you want me to be with, doing the things you want me to do. Thank you for the joys and challenges of my life. Amen. And Sat Nam to each of you.